Hello mouses! I want to start today by showing you this response to a Reddit thread about why ex-neo-Nazis left their various groups. It's a heartfelt explanation for how and why one skinhead turned his life around. And I think it shows us exactly why these hate groups still manage to propagate so readily. It's all about the us and them factor, which psychologists have shown is such a strong motivator in human psyches. The hater sees the object of their hatred as something inherently other, and as something that can't possibly be part of the us group. And it can literally shake a person to their core when they find evidence that the people in the them group are far closer to the us group, to the point where you could possibly intermingle them than they would have ever thought possible. Now, I will be the first to admit that little old milk bottle skinned me has never actually experienced racism, but I have experienced this us and them attitude that causes so much hatred. I get this othering in the street from transphobes, I get it in LGBT groups and at pride events and other groups where you would think it would be a safe space for a bi-trans person to be, but it's really not, because there's still us and them. And when you're trans, you're always in the them camp. And even when you're in a group of trans people, if you're a conservative trans person, you're always in the them camp. So you get it wherever you go. And it doesn't matter what is causing this. If you're in that them group, you always end up with all of the stereotypes. And apparently if you're one of them, then you must embody all of the stereotypes. So you'll hear all kinds of hate and ignorance and stupidity coming at you from people that you would have thought would actually know better. So you'll hear things like this.
You're blind? I bet you have all kinds of diseases because you sleep around with men and women so much.
Do I?
Yeah, all bisexuals are greedy sex mongers. I bet you have loads of threesomes and shit like that.
Good grief, that all sounds very tiring. And this. How can you be gay and Tory? Don't you remember section 28? You mean the legislation that's not only almost 30 years old, but also firmly in the past? It's homophobia. You're a homophobe. What does that even mean? Are you suggesting that I'm straight? Or somehow gay twice? And it's ridiculous. Now, the us and them thing always breaks down. If you spend enough time with them to know that they're actually more like us than you would like to admit, then you'll find that your barriers break down, your hatred breaks down. So it's very, very important that we have as much intermingling as possible to get rid of this abject hatred that has no actual basis. Sure, you're allowed to not like people. I'm not going to say you can't not like people. I'm not going to say you have to love everyone. Peace and love and happiness and hugs for everyone doesn't always work. But if you're going to dislike someone, dislike them for a reason, rather than just a generalization that you've had ingrained into you by years of them being different. So I'm all for education programs that cause intermingling and get people to get past these barriers and get past the stereotypes and the assumptions and everything else that causes problems. And I realise that if you ever see a hate group, they will argue against this sort of education and intermingling that really, really strikes them to their core, because they know that it will undermine everything they're saying. Or if they don't know that, they implicitly know it in the back of their mind. They know that people are actually people, which is why they'll be so vociferous against the idea. But at the same time, you need this kind of education. So I'm all for that, because it's really the only way to get past the problem. And sure, most times if you do it to a certain extent, it'll say, oh, well, we know that that group over there is like this, this and this. But that guy there, John, we'll call him John, it could be anything, but John here, he's like us, so he's more one of us. He's the exception to the rule. They're still bad, but he's okay. We have to get past that as well. So education just to a small extent, like, oh, well, he's more like us than them, so he's all right. He's the exception. Gets pushed away. And we have proper intermingling. Yeah, they might be X, Y, and Z, but they're blah, 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 blah. So it's okay. That's the future, I think. Anyway, that's all I really got time for today, so thank you very much for listening. If you did like this, remember to click the like button, share it with your friends so that they can see why all this hate and stereotypical behaviour and the assumptions that people make is all wrong and how it hurts us all in the end. And do subscribe for future videos, because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching the Nog Mouse Show, and I'll see you tomorrow.